Alright, so in this example we're going to be looking at evaluating the composition of trig functions. Here we have the inverse sine of the sine of 7 pi over 5. And so first we're going to say that the inverse sine, that's going to equal to some angle theta. And let's recall that the restrictions on that angle, the restrictions for inverse sine, say that this angle theta has to be between negative pi over 2 and pi over 2. So whatever our answer is, it has to be within this range. So if I take the inverse sine and move it over, that's going to say the sine of 7 pi over 5 has to equal to the sine of theta. And we would say theta is just going to be 7 pi over 5. However, 7 pi over 5 does not fall within this range. So we're going to have to find an equivalent angle that'll give us the same value but is within range. So let's go to the unit circle and see if we can figure that out. So 7 pi over 5 is going to be a little bit bigger than pi. We know that 5 pi over 5 is equal to pi, which is 180. And we're looking at 7 pi over 5, which means that this difference here is going to be 2 pi over 5, if that makes sense. So 5 pi over 5, if I go 2/5 more, that'll put me at 7 pi over 5. So that angle is going to be in the third quadrant, and in the third quadrant we know that we have a negative x and a negative y. So we're going to need an equivalent angle in the range of negative pi over 2 to pi over 2 that's going to have the same y value, since we're talking about y, sine. And we know that that can't be the first quadrant, because in the first quadrant all the y values are positive. So it's going to have to be an angle in the fourth quadrant. And the equivalent xy here would be positive x, negative y. And for these ordered pairs to be the same, these angles have to be the same. Okay, but now remember, we're going from negative pi over 2 to pi over 2. So to get to this angle, we're going to have to go clockwise. And so that's going to be negative 2 pi over 5. And so the answer to our problem, the theta that we're looking for, is negative 2 pi over 5.